One. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Bible Fun with the Nuns. Today we're studying Luke chapter 6. Let's jump right in.
Okay, so today the Dunn guys, we're on location. So Mama and Jax are they're off at a cross country tournament. Today for us is Saturday, so we're looking at Luke chapter 6. We're looking ahead a little bit. Today Jeb is playing soccer. He's already one game down, and he's got a next game coming up. He won the first game and he scored, and we're excited about that. But in the meantime, we're between games. We're studying Luke chapter number 6. Now, when you look at this chapter, it's a really neat chapter. So this is probably, if you took your Bible and you went to Matthew chapter 5, you would find Jesus beginning what we call his most famous sermon is the Sermon on the, do y'all remember?
Mount.
The Sermon on the Mount. So in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is going to say, blessed are those who mourn, for, blessed are the poor, blessed are those who hunger and thirst. Well, whenever you hear that in the Sermon on the Mount, Luke chapter 6 is actually is Luke's version of Jesus's Sermon on the Mount, because he's picking up on the same ideas. You're hearing him talking about seeing a speck in your brother's eye, but not like paying attention to the plank in your own eye. So when you're hearing all of this, this is Luke recording for us Jesus's most famous moment. One of the things I get out of this chapter is I notice how at this point in Luke, and you're going to notice this for the next several chapters, a lot of Luke's stories happen on the Sabbath day. Now, the day that we go worship is on Sunday. The reason we do that is because Jesus rose again on a Sunday. And so Christians have typically always, for the last 2,000 years, we've worshiped on Sunday because it's the weekly anniversary of the resurrection. Jewish people back in Jesus's day, their day of worship and rest was on Saturday. Most of the stories that you're going to find come out of this, and most of the anger of the religious leaders come out of the Sabbath. So whether or not Jesus is going to heal on a Sabbath, or whether or not Jesus feeds his disciples on a Sabbath, or whether or not Jesus is going to do a lot of things. A lot of these things come out of the Sabbath. And the reason they're so angry is, number one, they're fueled by jealousy of Jesus. But the other side is they're angry because the Sabbath day was the day when they were in charge, and they liked everything to be, by the rules, and they to be the boss. They liked all of that. And when Jesus started healing people and feeding people, they didn't like that because they thought Jesus should obey the rules. So here's what happens. They took something that should have been great, a day of worship and a day of rest. Also a day that should make us focus on God. And when we focus on God, we should love our neighbor as ourselves. So when Jesus is healing people, those are prime opportunities. But here's what they didn't like. They didn't like Jesus getting out of bounds of what they thought that they controlled. And they took something that should have been wonderful and a gift, and they made it into something that's bad. So here's what I did. I was trying to think, is there anything in our lives that should be good or we should be doing right, but we want to do other things and we get irritated? For instance, one time recently, me and the boys we were gonna listen to a chapter of the Bible when we drove, and I got a phone call, and the phone call just kind of went on and on and on, and somebody, they just didn't stop talking. And in my mind, I was like, man, I wish we could hurry up so we could get to the Bible. And then I thought about this chapter because I thought, you know what? Here I am trying to read the Bible, and it was going to be a chapter where Jesus is talking about, putting others first. And I'm trying to put that phone call last because I want to get to the Bible. And I thought, I'm making the same mistakes these Pharisees. I'm missing the point. And so that's what I thought about in this. But the boys picked up some other things. So Jeb, what did you get out of this? Because your takeaway was kind of the same as mine.
So I liked how Jesus was talking to his disciples about the golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated. And that kind of reminded me of put God first, then your neighbor, then yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Jeb likes the golden rule, okay? But Jeb also gave us the 3 priorities for life, how we ought to structure what's important. So Jeb, what's number 1?
Jesus.
Jesus. What's number 2?
Your neighbor.
Our neighbor. And what's number 3?
Us.
Ourselves. Okay, so we put God first, then others, then ourselves last, and I think that's a great takeaway from this story. And the golden rule certainly is big. John, tell us what you got.
All right, so in this chapter, I like the last little section where Jesus is telling the parable about the 2 people who built their houses, one on rock and one on sand. And what he was implying there is the person who builds their house on the sand can hears what Jesus is saying or the word, but doesn't act on it, and so their house or themselves just like crumble down and stuff. But when you build your house on the rock, he's saying that that's like hearing the word and also doing it, and your house stays strong forever.
I got that. So I like how what you saw in that the 2 houses, those who obey Jesus, listen to his words and obey, are like those who build their house on a rock, because he's the rock. His words are the rock. And those who hear his words but don't obey are building their houses on the sand. If we went back to the beginning of the chapter, remember the Pharisees are mad at Jesus. And so they're hearing all that he's saying, but they're not living and obeying and changing. And so they are the ones who are building their lives on the sand, but they're not going to be the last ones. We can do this too. We can hear, like what Jeb said, that we ought to put God first, then our neighbor, then ourselves. We ought to love our neighbors. We love ourselves. We ought to follow the golden rule. We ought to, the golden rule is what, Jeb?
Treat others the way you want to be treated.
Treat others the way you can be treated. So if we obey that, then it's like building our house on a firm foundation. If we know that but we don't do it, it means we're building our lives on shaky ground. So when we read through this story, we need to say, what is my takeaway, and what's one thing that I can live the rest of the day and I can put into practice. So for me, I want to remember people come first today. Let me not rush past people. I want to put them first. John is going to take away. I want to obey what Jesus says, and I want to build my life on him. Jeb is going to take away. I want to treat others the way I want to be treated and follow the golden rule. So what's your takeaway today? We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow in Luke chapter 7. All right? Bye.
Bye.